So I've just watched Kiriko by the Overwatch 2 animation team, and I thought it was absolutely wonderful, and a masterclass in short storytelling. They managed to construct a narrative in just under 10 minutes in one location, and it's just the perfect case study in short films. I'm now binge watching all the Overwatch shorts, and they're all brilliant, but I think Kiriko stands out just for its simplicity, but incredibly powerful and surprisingly moving narrative. So if you haven't watched it already, go watch it, then come back here. So this narrative uses 7 characters, but realistically there's 4 main character types. We've got the main character, Kiriko. We have the overprotective mother who's struggling to let her daughter go. We have the vulnerable person that we take a liking to and care about. And then we have the bad guy with the simple motive of wanting his money back. So how does Kiriko make us care about these characters in the first minute or so? Well, we start by meeting Kiriko and Mr. Yoshida. This gives us an immediate impression of their characters. Kiriko is a young, easygoing woman who's kind, but also probably quite new to living on her own, possibly even naive with the sort of way she's eating donuts for dinner probably multiple times.
Donuts for dinner again?
Mr. Yoshida is a kindly old man who is quite grandfatherly in the way he jokingly disapproves of the donuts, but doesn't push the issue. He clearly cares for Kiriko, and they clearly have a good friendship. We meet Fox, Mr. Yoshida's granddaughter, and this is Kiriko's sort of save the cat moment in a way. Normally this is the main character doing something kind, like saving a cat stuck up a tree, to make the audience feel sympathetic towards her. Here, Kiriko exchanges gifts with Fox, giving her a cuddly toy, and Fox gives her a headband that she's made for her. This kind of interaction just really makes you feel like warms you to all 3 characters. It's a very nice interaction and serves a couple of purposes. So it sets the status quo. This is a nice friendship in a small, quiet apartment block, where obviously nothing much happens. But it also serves another important role, because it shows us that both of these characters we care for are very vulnerable and are probably very unlikely to be able to defend themselves. And this is very important in the next act. So we then meet Kiriko's mother, who we've heard about from Mr. Yoshida and Kiriko's discussion in the hall. And this fleshes out Kiriko's characters a bit more. We find out she's frustrated by her mother's visits, showing her inner conflict. She's frustrated by her mother, and might even believe deep down that her lack of belief in her is reasonable. So this builds the audience relationship to her character by giving her an almost sort of universal experience thing that children get from parents, guardians, and other people we're close with. That sort of feeling of, we might not be ready for this. The moment Kiriko walks into the apartment, her mother immediately starts talking.
Kiriko, it's not safe here anymore. Just last week, someone in this building was robbed at gunpoint.
This allows us to have sympathy with her mother. She's just worried about her daughter, and someone being robbed at gunpoint in her building is a reasonable thing to be worried about. But this line also tells us that Fox and Mr. Yoshida are in danger too. It's a very clever line which achieves multiple things. This then meanders into the mum seeing that Kiriko has bought donuts for dinner, and this again sort of makes us realise that she's quite new to living on her own, and probably is quite it's a big step up moving on your own. Her mum's worries about her are probably reasonable in a way, but this meandering also makes the conversation feel very natural, and to me at least, really could be a conversation between a mother and her daughter. And this one might be a little subjective, but it's also very relatable to me. Having just moved to uni, I can feel my mum's presence when I have a whole packet of hobnobs for dinner. But the conversation quickly turns back to Kiriko's safety, and we're introduced to the idea of the protection of the fox spirit, which the mum clearly doesn't believe in, dismissing her grandmother's belief. And we see that she doesn't think Kiriko is ready for the real world.
I'm stronger than you think.
Are you?
And that's the end of Act 1. And in 3 minutes 14 seconds, we have a very concise, well-written act. We have all the exposition we need to know as, who these characters are, why we should care about them, their conflicts, and obviously this quite important thing of the fox spirit, which is a theme that runs throughout this. So we start Act 2 with the turning point. We have the mob turn up and start to knock around Mr. Yoshida, asking about his son.
Your son owes us a lot of money!
We look to Kiriko to do something to protect them, which of course she does with insane style, but how does this fight scene actually push the story? Well, the fight flows. It isn't obvious that Kiriko is always winning. She starts by coming out the gates quickly, taking the thugs by surprise, but then the stakes are ramped up. The boss takes Fox hostage, and before Mr. Yoshida can do anything, he's shot, and Kiriko now has 3 things to worry about. The fight slows right down, and we fear the worst has happened to Mr. Yoshida, and Fox's distress cries fill the hall. There's a moment of silence as we feel the tension in the room. The thug is afraid, he can't see anything through the haze, and the audience is afraid for Mr. Yoshida and Fox. Then Mr. Yoshida moves and the tension drops. He's okay. And we finish Act 2 with an awesome scream and axe throw from Fox, driving the mob away, probably for good. This is where they fully win the fight, and the fight is won. And we move into Act 3. So we've finished with the mob story. Mr. Yoshida and Fox, both okay. So now it's time to wrap up the subplot. We go back to the apartment where Kiriko's mother has just watched all this unfold and has finally been shown that her daughter is capable of looking after herself. But Kiriko also then realises the importance of having her mother there and agrees to move home for a little while and train with her again. And we get the grandmother subplot tied up as well.
Your grandma would be so proud of you.
The mother obviously has a bit more respect for her beliefs after that as well. And that's how we end the story. So let's recap. Act 1, we introduce new characters and the status quo. A main character who interacts with the vulnerable characters in a loving way to make us care for them. We introduce the side character as a foil, conflicting with the main character and bringing to surface the inner conflict. In this case, a fear of inadequacy. Act 2, we put the vulnerable characters in peril using the bad guys with a simple motive, for this example money. We force the main character to do something and overcome the external and internal conflict. In this case, the thugs are the external and the mum's doubt in her abilities is the internal. The main character overcomes the threat and saves the vulnerable characters. Act 3, we resolve the inner conflict. Status quo reverts to normal. The vulnerable characters are okay, but the mother now respects her daughter's abilities, and Kiriko gets a new appreciation for her mother. All in all, a fantastically simple but effective story, which I found very moving and just wanted to share. I think this is a great way to understand story structure of stories of any length, and how to create a simple but effective internal and external conflict, and then resolve it in a satisfying way, all in like 10 minutes. It's really, really incredible. Next time I really want to look at The Last Bastion, as this solely relies on one character and uses no dialogue. And that's just a wonderful short and an excellent study in visual storytelling. So look out for that. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.